This is the DP Show,
where insanity sounds sane.
And now, the man, the myth, the legend in his own mind, D. Palmer.
DP Show, getting you ready for an early Diamondback broadcast. D-backs going on the road have taken the series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers, who everybody's been talking about, making all these improvements, not enough to keep the resurgent Diamondbacks from not starting a tough 17 of 20 on the road by taking this series in Los Angeles. The Diamondbacks got to feel pretty good about themselves, especially now as after today they're going over to Philadelphia to take on the selling Phillies. The Phillies have pretty much given up on this season, so the D-backs have a great opportunity to try and make up some ground or even overcome these two division leaders, as they are not playing well, either the Dodgers or the Giants. So the D-backs now 2 of 3, definitely at the very worst, and now have some guy named Fife to contend with today. S. Fife. I think it's Steven. Some guy is better because nobody's really heard of this guy, though. He's pitched pretty well. His 2 starts as an ERA under 2, but let's see if the scouting report has gone around enough and the Diamondbacks have been able to crack him. Also getting ready to start up is football. The Blue Ridge Yellow Jackets going to be playing in the Sullenberger Classic against, I believe it is pronounced, Moapa Valley in Nevada. That's going to be down at the University of Phoenix Stadium on August 18th. And usually those are put on the Fox Sports Net, but we'll make sure of that. I'm pretty sure that's the way it works out. So that'll be fun anyway to watch the Yellow Jackets take part in that thing. And then on the 24th of August, you have Sholo getting into action at St. John's, and then Snowflake is playing Holbrook on the 24th. So everybody's getting ready to get going, and usually that means as school's getting ready to start, everybody is either just coming back from a camp or is getting ready to go to a camp, and that means that it is time to talk hazing. In fact, the Arizona Republic over the weekend had a story just about that, and I understand that was a pretty funny segue because football starting, that means we got to start talking about hazing, but so often that's just the way this works, is they deem these things as some sort of rite of passage. Everybody did it, and everybody then has to endure it, and wanted to take a look at this and then just to have a conversation about what goes on at school that would allow such a things, and what do we need to do as parents to try to make sure that our kids don't become victimized. But the story in the Republic isn't anything that happened recently, and I think that the reason that they put this out there was just much along the lines of why I found it so interesting. It's just something people need to understand and talk about a little bit more than they have been. But last year, Highland High School in Gilbert went to California, and it turned out that somebody was doing some sort of hazing rituals to some of the underclassmen, where it was discovered by the coaching staff there that this had happened, and he punished them as typically a coach will. He made them do extra conditioning, and he said they had to run a hill just like everybody else did, though they had to do it more than they were provided with breaks and water and stuff like that. So it's not as if they were being tortured, though you could make the argument that they had done exactly that to these kids. What happened, as I'm going to read from the Republic story, last July, close to 10 sophomore football players were forced to put Ben Gay, a pain-relieving cream, on their genitals and then forced into the shower to, quote, increase the pain, according to the district incident report reviewed by the Republic through a state open records law request. 15 upperclassmen told the younger students it was a, quote, tradition, end quote, at Highland, according to the report. The victims said they were not physically forced. One student, who said he wouldn't do it, said he was not forced to comply, the report said. Now, first off, these upperclassmen at Highland ought to be commended for not doing some real bullying and forcing that kid to do it. It was still unfortunate and sad to try to understand that these guys were able to, maybe the way to look at it is intellectually coerce these other sophomores into doing this thing. And the only reason that it became part of public knowledge is somebody wrote an anonymous letter to the district insisting that the coach hadn't done enough to discipline these guys after this thing had taken place, and that happened in October. Now, as a result of that letter, many parents rose up, defended the coach, said that they thought that he handled that well, that he handles just about everything well. In fact, he has an impressive resume where he's worked at many private or Christian schools. So it seems as if anybody was equipped to try to handle this in a charitable way, that this gentleman would be that. But what's really curious about it all is what the district, the Gilbert School District, insisted as a result of this, that its teachers need to do is go through a hazing deterrent program, we'll call it, where it's all centered around this one quote here. Quote, hazing shows disrespect from one player to another, which is in violation of the code of conduct and the district's policy. Now, they're going to say this because typically what you're going to do when you haze somebody is humiliate them, and because they can, because they either have the physical or some sort of method of asserting and exerting dominance on these people, these young people. Well, you typically find this happening in a high school where you're going to do something humiliating, usually physical, and it's usually disgusting. Because you don't want that to happen, that's why the districts are taking this zero tolerant policy on the whole hazing thing. But my question is, especially when you consider how the whole hazing thing surrounds and revolves around this insistence upon dominance, how one school district or another can't say something to the effect of that it shows disrespect from one player to another, and it is in violation of the code of conduct, when that is essentially the whole premise behind coerced schooling. Not necessarily the whole disrespect aspect of it all. Everybody wants to believe that we send our kids off to these schools, that they are treated respectfully, so on and so forth. But the thing that I'm going to insist here in the coming moments is that the entire school system, the philosophy behind the whole mandatory schooling system, is built on the same sort of premise that allows for this sort of hazing. Or how about it, put it this way, it's built on intellectual hazing. Because, again, let's look at the psychology of hazing. You do it because you can. You can somehow assert dominance. And usually this is going to be like some big guy who can go pick on smaller guys, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a football thing or any sort of athletic thing. The kids that are bullies are the insecure ones who can somehow assert dominance, usually because of their size or because of some deemed ability. And that might be something as simple as you're going on to the 5th grade, not necessarily because you had such outstanding accomplishments, but because you're the same age, you didn't do anything that should insist that you stay back, so you're going to be deemed better than all these 4th graders, and that provides these guys with the makeup to believe that they should then be allowed to go off and do, all sorts of funny business. Because why? Because I'm a 5th grader and they're 4th graders. It's not something that is necessarily devious that these schools or the school system is trying to instill within these guys. You're better than the 4th graders because you're a 5th grader. I think it's just something that's a little bit natural. It's something that we don't necessarily see a lot of in the professional world, because people are usually judged primarily by their accomplishments. So you can't say to somebody, I'm 40, you're only 28, I'm going to take your lunch, or something like that, right? Is it because of this tiered structure based not necessarily on accomplishment, it I believe is a breeding ground, just a natural breeding ground to have an atmosphere where dominance is generally going to be viewed by the bigger, the stronger, the older, is going to be viewed as being available. Excuse me. And it also starts right with how we are teaching our kids to respond to the teachers. The one thing that everybody is told once they go off into the school world is you do what your teacher says. Why? Well, because they're the authority figure, because they dominate the classroom. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what they know or how they are able to relate to people. We hope that they know a lot and that they are, in fact, able to manage a classroom by using their personality and the strengths of the personalities around them. But when it comes right down to it, you do what teacher says. Also, you want to make sure that that the kids are going to fall in line and avoid the whole black sheep stigma. I insist that is also a form of asserted dominance, because what are you going to do? You're going to be different? You're going to be different than everybody in there? You want everybody to think that you're different? Fall into line, be dominated, if only in some sort of intellectual or psychological aspect. Now, what's a parent to do about this? Because we have to send our kids to school, so on, so forth, and et cetera. And because of that mind frame, when something like this that happens at Gilbert and has happened at just about every school, no matter where you are, the first thing that the parents say is, well, do something about this. Make my kids safe. I don't believe that. And I think that one of the problems that we're running into as a nation, for example, is because we've been now for generations, plural, saying, hey, somebody do something about this. I can't do this. I have to do X. Y is happening, so Z means somebody needs to go in there and make an influence on this situation. District, do something. My kid was hazed. Go do something about it. Well, if you, parents, have to send your kids to school, what I'm going to promise you, this is coming from an instructor, all right, beg your pardon, what you need to do is make sure that you're developing your kids' emotions. Your kids are getting all of their emotional development at your feet, because the teachers just don't have time to do that. Or you need to make sure that your kids are going to school equipped to say no to bullies. All right? It's your job. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to try to tell you how to do that, because heaven knows I'm not anywhere near the best father figure for my own children. But the point I'm trying to make is we're cramming so many kids in our schools, it's hard enough just to try to teach them how to read, write, and, add. I almost said read, write, and math. But you need to take up all the other responsibilities. And when your kid potentially is hazed, the best thing to do to make sure that that doesn't happen is to make sure that they know to say no and just trust that everybody around them is decent enough to respect their wishes. If they're not, then you need to teach them to do something else, like maybe how to punch somebody in the face. All right? Because some of these hazing rites that they're doing, like putting Bengay on genitals, is probably something that you could prosecute if it happened anywhere besides a football camp. And your kids need to know that they should be able to defend themselves against that. But that's your responsibility. You need to do the teaching there. And the other thing I want to bring to your attention is that we can't really rely on the public schools to do this because, like I said, the whole concept behind coerced schooling is dominance. I'm going to read to you from John Taylor Gatto. You can find this at johntaylorgatto.com. He was Teacher of the Year in New York schools, in the New York School District, and he wrote a book, The Underground History of American Education. In there, he wrote in Chapter 2, the secret of American schooling is that it doesn't teach the way children learn, and it isn't supposed to. School was engineered to serve a concealed command economy and a deliberately restaffed social order. It wasn't made for the benefit of kids and families as those individuals and institutions would define their own needs. School is the first impression children get of organized society. Like most first impressions, it is the lasting one. Life according to school is dull and stupid. Only consumption promises relief. Coke, Big Macs, fashion jeans, that's where the real meaning is found. That is the classroom's lesson, however indirectly delivered. I'll go one step further. School is the first impression children get of organized society, and organized society is structured in a dominant fashion. That is the primary message I believe people have coming out of the school system. Again, not necessarily because everybody in the school system is trying to put that from the top down, but look what's happening in the schools. Look at this hazing stuff. Why does this hazing stuff occur? Furthermore, why does other forms of hazing continue to occur outside of schools? If I had $1 for every time I said to somebody, every time you go to the airport, your Fourth Amendment rights are being violated, and they said to me, well, as long as you're not doing anything you're not supposed to, or as long as you don't have stuff in your luggage that you're not supposed to, then you're not going to have to worry about anything. That's not the point. The point is every time we go to the airport, we're getting bullied. We're getting hazed. All right? We're getting hazed, and nobody's willing to do anything about it because what we learned at school is that this sort of thing happens and that you just deal with it. Well, what we need to do is start teaching our kids that you don't deal with this stuff. And I'm telling you, they're not learning that at schools because that is not the school's mission. Wish I had time to continue doing this, so I'm going to continue. Anytime I see a school story, I'm going to bring out Gatto so you guys can hear more about him. But don't let your kids get hazed, not at school, not anywhere. And they need to learn this at a young age so that when they grow up, they understand that they have natural liberties that are theirs and only theirs, and nobody can take them away from them. Getting ready for the Diamondbacks at the DP Show on iTalk 106.7.